स्वाध्याय टीवी। डॉक्टर बाबा साहेब आंबेडकर ओपन यूनिवर्सिटी।
Namaskar dear students, I Dr. Himanshu Patel welcome you from the Chaitanya studio of Dr. Baba Saheb Ambedkar Open University. We are in lecture series on Java programming. Before we start, let us have glance over last lecture's detail. In last session, you have learned how and why Java came about and what makes it is so important. We also discuss some of the features of Java and we learn that Java is a object oriented programming language. Today our topic is all about object oriented concepts. So, we starts with what is object oriented programming, then we discuss basic concepts of object oriented programming, and in last we discuss what are the benefits of object oriented programming. So, let us start with what is object oriented programming. An object oriented programming organizes a program around its data or object and set of well defined interface to that data. An object oriented programming can be characterized at data controlling access to code. We can say object oriented programming, as its name suggests, is all about objects, and object is the essential part of object oriented programming that we discuss soon, and the major aspect of object oriented programming is abstraction. Now, we discuss one by one concepts of object oriented programming. So, we starts with object. Now, what is object? As I mentioned earlier, objects are key to understanding object oriented technology. You will find many examples of real world objects, for example, fruits, vegetables, television, bicycle, animal, etc. Now, these real world objects share two important characteristics. First, they all have state and behavior. Now, what is state and behavior? We take one example. For example, dogs have state which is name, color, breed and whether it is hungry or not, and behavior of dog is barking, fetching, wagging tail, etc. Identifying the state and behavior for real world object is a great way to begin thinking in terms of object oriented programming. So, whatever program you are writing, you have to think in terms of object. Now, we take example of conceptual objects. Conceptual object includes risk, agreement and profit. Now, many objects have both physical as well as conceptual aspects. So, object may be physical as well as conceptual. The most fundamental idea behind object technology is that these real world objects should be represented in software system through logical units called object. In object oriented programming, we have to map real world object with software object or to represent it in terms of software design. Now, software objects are conceptually similar to real world object. They also consist of state and related behavior. An object stores its states in field, which are also called variable in programming language, and expose its behavior through methods, which is earlier called function in procedural oriented programming language. Now, these methods operate on an object internal state and serve as a primary mechanism for object to object communication. That means, one object can communicate with another object via its method, and these methods operate on its data, state or field. Now, we understand what is object. Next is a class. So, we try to understand what is a class. We can say a class is a blueprint or prototype from which objects are created. Now, class that models the state and behavior of real world object. So, we can say class actually defines how object behaves. It intentionally focuses on the basics. A class can cleanly model state and behavior. Classes are template for defining similar object, providing the basis for abstracting the common characteristics of real world object. We can say group of similar object is a class. Now, we take one example. For example, potato, brinjal and tomato is an object of type vegetable, while the common name for all is vegetable. So, we can say vegetable is a class and potato, tomato and brinjal may be the object of that class. The primary role of class is to specify the method and variables to be used by the object. As we mentioned earlier, object consists of two things, one is a state or data and another is behavior or method. So, class defines these two using some data type and methods in programming language. Now, next important point is abstraction. So, we discuss what is abstraction. Now, as we discussed earlier, class represent the primary mechanism for the logical process abstraction, which is the generalization of generic property that applies to group of object. That means, class defines all the data and behavior for which is common to all object. So, abstraction is a critical process in both human understanding and software design also. In essence, abstraction defines the different kind of types of object that can exist in a system. Classes define methods as well as data, makes them particularly powerful for implementing generic type. A class is also called abstract data type. Now, initially when we develop program, we initially identify objects. So, at that time we are not focusing on how these object behaves and what are its property or state may be. Then we go further into detail or making it less abstract by defining class. Inside class we just specify state and method, but at that time we are not think of how this method will be implemented. So, class provides this abstraction mechanism and that is why it is called abstract data type. Now, we discuss encapsulation, which is also important part. So, we discuss that object consists of two things, one is state and another is behavior. So, hiding internal state and requiring all interaction to be performed through an object's method is known as a data encapsulation. That means, our data is not directly accessible outside our class, but it can only be accessed through a method which is a public. So, these mechanism binding data and method together is known as a encapsulation. Encapsulation is the mechanism for packaging related data and procedure together within objects. We can say an object is a software capsule that functions as a black box, responding to message from other objects and dispatching message of its own in way that do not reveal its internal structure. That means, object can share data with each other via method only, no direct access is provided for data. In this way, encapsulation supports and extends the proven principle of information hiding, and it is a valuable because it prevents local changes from having global impact. This was the problem with procedural oriented programming. So, these problem of hiding data is solved with the help of encapsulation. For example, one program provides method which is used by another program. So, if I change the method body or implementation of method, it does not bother me, because we are just allowing others to call this method and not provide details how this method is implemented. In practice, this is achieved by declaring all variable to be private or hidden from view outside of the object. In most object languages, method as well as data may be declared to be private, and it allows the internal operation of an object to be hidden from a view. That means, data should not be directly accessible by anyone other than class methods, and other can access this data by calling method of class. Now, this approach offers the greatest flexibility in terms of future changes or to the object. So, we can say encapsulation is a most important aspect of object oriented programming. The next is a polymorphism. So, we discuss what is polymorphism is. A polymorphism is the ability to implement the same message in different way in different objects. The fact that different object can respond to the same message in different way is known as a polymorphism. The power of polymorphism is that it greatly simplifies the logic of program. A requester no longer has to use nested if statements or complex case statement to call the appropriate procedure. Instead, the proper procedure is automatically invoked by sending a request to a particular object. Now, polymorphism messaging has several advantages over conditional conventional logic. First is, it is much shorter, reducing the size and complexity of the resulting program code. Second, it executes faster, because the program code compiles down to a direct jump to the appropriate procedure rather than passing through a real time shift to identify that procedure. Third, it is more flexible in that a new financial instrument can be added or old one removed without having to rewriting the selection logic. Now, we take example of polymorphism. Now, suppose I want to add two number, then my method name may be add. Suppose I want to add two string, which is also called concatenation. So, I can have same method which is with name add, and suppose I want to add two complex numbers, my method name may be add only. So, for all these operation, whether I want to add normal numbers, whether I want to add or to join two strings, or whether I want to sum two complex number, my method name remains same add, and based on the argument that I supplies to method add, it will automatically call particular implementation of that method. For example, if I pass two numbers, it will call method which takes two number as argument, and if I pass two string, it will automatically call method which has argument of type string. So, this is how polymorphism works. The next is a concept is called inheritance. So, we discuss what is inheritance is. Now, different kind of object often have a certain amount in common with each other. Object oriented programming allows class to inherit commonly used state and behavior from other classes. Inheritance is the mechanism for deriving information defined in generic class to other classes which are declared to be special case of those generic classes. Inheritance is the mechanism that allows the classes to be defined as a special case of or subclasses of each other. For example, if a department class is declared to be a subclass of organization, the department class automatically incorporates all the method and variable defined in the organization class. Now, organization has a many department. So, organization defines those common attributes which is common for all the department, and more specific attribute and behavior are added by refining these organization class into more specific class called department. Inheritance can cascade down over any number of levels, allowing deeply nested class hierarchy to be constructed. There is no restriction on nesting of these inheritance. So, we can have any number of nesting there without any problem. For a method, a class is free to use either definition of a method inherited from its parent or superclass, or to override that definition by declaring a new definition within the class. For example, base class has a method with name A. So, it is automatically inherited by its child, and child is free to use either method of its parent, which is A, or it can re-implement these method. So, this new definition then becomes the inherited definition for classes below that class in the class hierarchy. So, this feature is known as a overriding, and overriding can ensure at any number of levels, providing a highly flexible mechanism for capturing both general rules of processing and special case where processing differs from these rules. So, this is a important features called overriding. The use of inheritance with overriding allows generalization and specialization. Now, what is generalization is? Generalization is form of abstraction in which methods are defined at the most general level at which they apply, and specialization allows unique features to be declared simply by overriding the generic method with more specific methods. So, as we goes in class hierarchy, at the top is a general classes and at the bottom are more specific classes or special classes. Some language provide support for the multiple inheritance in which a class can have two or more superclasses. Properly used multiple inheritance can be a real boon to design. Java does not support direct multiple inheritance, but it supports features called interface for multiple inheritance that we discuss later on. Take one example to understand how these all helps in object oriented design. Now, people interface with encapsulated features on car all the time. The brake and gas pedals hide an incredible array of complexity with an interface. So, simple you can operate them with your feet. You need not to understand how brake is applied actually internally, and you need not to think on how car is accelerated by pressing accelerator. You have to just use your feet. The implementation of the engine, the style of brake and the size of tires have no effect on how you interface with the class definition of the pedal. So, this is example of abstraction. You need not to think on how these pedals, brake pedals and accelerator works. It is hides from you. You have to just operate them with your feet. Now, next, polymorphism is clearly reflected in the ability of car manufacturers to offer a wide array of options on basically the same vehicle. The basic model remains same. Some offers power steering, some offers power window, some offers music system. So, these are the multiple options offered by car manufacturer. So, these base remain same, but features can be added on this basic model. So, this is example of polymorphism. For example, you can get an anti-lock braking system or traditional brakes, power or normal steering. You will still press the brake pedal to stop, turn the steering wheel to change direction and press the accelerator when you want to move. So, these detail remain same whether you are using base model or luxury model, but these behavior does not change. So, this is example of polymorphism. By the application of object oriented principles, the various parts of complex program can be brought together to form a cohesive, robust, maintainable whole. So, car is also consists of different types of parts. So, this is how all together work in a object oriented fashion that we can understand. Now, we discuss the benefits of object oriented programming. Bundling code into individual software objects provide a number of benefits. Now, what are these benefits? The first benefit is modularity. That means, the source code for an object can be written and maintained independently of the source code for other objects. That means, every object is a separate. Once created, an object can be easily passed around inside the system. The second advantage is information hiding, which is achieved by encapsulation. By interacting only with an object method, the details of its internal implementation remains hidden from the outside world. So, this is known as a information hiding. Another advantage is code reusability. If an object already exists, you can use that object in your program using inheritance. These allows to implement, test, debug complex task specific object, which you can then run in your own code. The next advantage is pluggability and easy debugging. If a particular object turns out to be problematic, you can simply remove it from your application and plug in a different object as its replacement without affecting rest of the system. Now, this is analogous to fixing mechanical problem in real world. If a bolt breaks, you replace it, not entire machine. So, this also happens in object oriented programming. When properly applied, polymorphism, encapsulation and inheritance combine to produce a programming environment that supports the development of far more robust and scalable program than offered by the process oriented model. A well designed hierarchy of classes is the basis for resulting reusing the code in which you have invested time and efforts developing and testing. Encapsulation allows you to migrate your implementation over time without breaking the code that depends on the public interface of your classes. Polymorphism allows you to create clean, sensible, readable and resilient code. In today's lecture, you have learned basic concepts of object oriented programming such as object, class, encapsulation, polymorphism and inheritance. We have also discussed benefits of object oriented programming. Now, we want to download Java development environment, that is NetBeans. We will use NetBeans for Java application development and it is a IDE for Java and it is a free and open source and freely available to all. Now, on screen you can see where to download this NetBeans IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment and in using this NetBeans IDE, we can easily develop our Java program. It provides many features that we see later on, but right now we will write down our Java program inside this NetBeans IDE. It provides facility for easily compiling and running your program. So, here is a on screen you can see in browser our URL is netbeans.org/download. It will open this page. Here there are multiple options available for downloading, whether you want to download Java SE, that is standard edition, Java EE, that is enterprise edition, whether you want to develop for HTML5 and JavaScript, whether you want to develop your program for PHP, whether you want to develop only for C and C++, or whether you want to download it for all. So, here you can download NetBeans standalone as well as with JDK, that is Java Development Kit. So, Java Development Kit is a Java environment and NetBeans is a IDE where we develop our program. So, NetBeans allow you to download IDE and JDK as a bundle. Here below is a hyperlink that you can see JDK with NetBeans IDE Java SE bundle. So, you can download as a single setup and then you can run that setup. So, it will install Java Development Kit as well as IDE also. So, I am clicking on this link given below. Now, it will open another page where you can actually download your bundle which is NetBeans plus JDK. So, here on screen you can see we can download JDK 7 with NetBeans 8.0.2 and you have to accept this license agreement, and here are the options whether you want to download your Java for Linux, Macintosh or Windows. Here I want to download it for Windows. So, I am clicking on last link which is JDK 7 with NetBeans 8.0 for 64-bit architecture. You can download based on your operating system. So, I am clicking on this, it will start downloading my JDK and NetBeans bundle. Here is my download folder where I can see that my setup is already downloaded. So, to run this setup I just double click on this. Remember, you must have permission for installing program on your computer. I am pressing run button here. So, it will start installing these softwares. First, it is installing JDK. So, it displays welcome message for JDK 7 and here we have to press next. Here it shows how many space required. You have to accept the license agreement and then you have to press next. Here is the path for JDK. So, I am using default path. You can change your path by clicking on this browser button, but here I am pressing next button. Here is the path for installing NetBeans and JDK for NetBeans is located where we select that path. So, you have to press next if you do not want to change default path, otherwise you can change by clicking on browse button. Here I am pressing next button. Now, you can check these for checking updates and then you have to press installed and my installation will starts. Here on screen you can see the progress of our installation. It will take some time for installation. So, you have to wait until your installation finished. Now, it is completing NetBeans IDE installation and downloading Java source user interface. Now, it displays message that installation completed successfully and now you can press finish button. Now, it will create shortcut for you. Here we can see our NetBeans IDE is already installed and by double clicking on it you can start your NetBeans IDE. So, here is our IDE open. We will discuss various parts of NetBeans IDE later on, but we have successfully downloaded and installed NetBeans IDE and JDK. You can test your JDK installation whether it is successfully installed or not. Here I am opening command prompt, and by typing command java minus version, you can know which version of Java is currently installed on your system. So, we have version 1.7 that you can see on screen, and command for checking which version of Java is installed is a java space minus and version. So, this is how we can download and install JDK and NetBeans as a single bundle. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you and happy learning.
स्वाध्याय टीवी